Welcome to Angelo State Coach's Corner. On today's show, joining me is Coach Kevin Baker of Rambell Basketball and Coach Cinco Boone of Rams Basketball. First up, we have Coach Baker. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the 15-16 seasons. Been over a couple of months now. You've had some time to reflect and think about what happened. Give me your take. Let me just do a little recap, and then you give me your take of what you thought happened and what you saw from the season. This season, 25 wins, I believe, most wins since 07-08. You won the Lone Star Conference tournament. You also won a regional game for the first time in several years and only the third time in program history. So talk to me a little bit. What was your take on this past season?
Well, actually, we won 24 games, which I hate to take one away. But at the same time, it was a remarkable season. And, you know, with all those great historical accomplishments, like winning the first NCAA tournament game in 11 years and winning the conference tournament, all those wonderful things, the biggest takeaway that I take away from our season is the fact that almost everyone was brand new. We had a completely brand new team, from down to assistant coaches into 12 new players. It was really, really the undertaking in terms of putting a team together, maintaining some chemistry, and making a huge run there towards the end of the season. So those accomplishments are great. I'm really, really proud of them. I'm surprised that we were able to have the kind of season that we were and have the success that we had so quickly. But at the same time, my takeaway is how amazing some people came together so quickly, and the chemistry grew so well, so fast.
You know, that's a great point you made, and I was going to ask that down the road, but I'm glad you brought that up. How did you and your staff, Coach Shippey and yourself, how did y'all get them to work together, being as it was an almost completely new team? You mentioned the term resiliency throughout the season. How did you instill that and teamwork into them so quick?
Well, you know, I'd love to take credit for that. And if the pats on the back, you know, I'd love to do that for myself. But basically the way it works out is it comes down to recruiting. And we try to recruit players that we think are tough, that we think are already resilient, that we think already have tremendous character. And then put them all in a room together and watch them grow. And that's kind of the hope. But what we did do, though, that I thought really helped and promoted it, is we brought everybody in for the summer and put them in summer school. And so there was a month there where they spent every moment together. They went to class together, they ate together, they went to the movies together. Most people wouldn't think that's any big deal. But in terms of our growth and getting to know each other, by the time the fall got here, they knew each other. And there was no getting to know you process, and we were able to grow faster together. We already really liked each other before it ever got started. So I attribute that to as much of our success as anything else.
Right. Well, you know, that's a great point you make about the whole teamwork thing. Coming from a military background, that's a lot of what the military tries to instill. So, you know, it's a good thing to see that. And you're right, that does build teamwork and does make them come together a lot quicker than if they just showed up in the fall and tried to work together. But what about, let's talk a little bit about some of the outstanding performers. Of course, Jasmine Prophet, Taylor Dorsey, Bria Mitchell, they got a lot of the stats, a lot of the headlines. Who were some of the unsung heroes that you thought showed up in a big way this past year?
Well, I thought one of the players that, you know, and this is pretty typical for most teams, is our point guard, Christina Robinson. She is probably, and well, in my opinion, she's the best point guard in the conference because she is so good at what she does. The problem is it goes unnoticed because she doesn't lead our team in scoring. She doesn't lead our team in rebounds, but we're a different team when she's not on the floor. So Christina Robinson, I thought, she was the first kid that we signed here when we got here, and I felt she was the most important kid that we signed when I first got here. So she was a huge piece to the puzzle, as she will be in the upcoming year as well. I thought Lexi Murphy was, she understood her role and came in and just did a great job as sort of our sixth man off the bench. She's a phenomenal shooter, probably has our highest basketball IQ on the team. I thought that she really helped us throughout the course of the season. And then Kiana Kelly, she doesn't get much of the acclaim. She doesn't get much of the, the first team all conference selection, stuff like that, but she was our defensive stopper, and she really did tremendous things for us this year defensively, and she can really shoot it. Diamelisis Rivera came off the bench for us and played a tremendous role for us. Matter of fact, she hit some big shots in some really big games for us all season long. She hit the shot that won the game at West Texas A&M in the third overtime. She came off the bench at Eastern New Mexico and really, I think she scored 25 points. So we had some key players that really came in and played some big-time roles for us. And the obvious players are the obvious ones, but those are our unsung heroes.
All right. It's a great point you make, because night after night when we would cover the broadcast and whatnot, we would look up and down the stat sheet, and very seldom was there one that stood out. It was a nice balance up and down the line, and I thought that was very impressive. So let me ask you this: what do you do for an encore?
That's always the question. I think it's really important for coaches is, one of the biggest things for this upcoming year is we don't want to talk about last year. As great as it was and as wonderful as it was, and I was just like anybody else. It was something great to be a part of. But what you really have to do is you have to start over, and you have to say,
right,
nobody really cares what you did last year. Nobody really cares your success. We've got to focus on what's ahead of us, what's in front of us. The one thing that this season did that's going to affect us for next season is it made us a marked target. We kind of snuck up on some people this year, but those days are over. The days of Angelo State sneaking up on anybody are over. So we're going to be a marked team. I hope that we're going to be picked to win the conference. If they don't vote for us, I think they're crazy. But from what we've got returning to what we're bringing in, I think we're going to be as solid as ever next year.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, because I was, throughout the season I was looking at some of the results and games and whatnot, and at the end of the season, correct me if I'm wrong, but West Texas only had 3 or 4 defeats, and 3 of them came to the Bells. So I thought that was, I can't remember who it was I was talking to after the season, but I mentioned the fact that one of the motivating factors was how low the Bells were picked to finish in the conference, and they had something to prove. But you're right, you are a marked team now. There's no sneaking up now.
No, there's not. And basically when people do the preseason stuff, they basically base it on what you did last year. So right. I probably would have voted us in that area too. But it's nice to overachieve, and it's nice to kill the haters and kind of do those kind of things. But,
right.
It's at the end of the day, we talk about preseason rankings and stuff like that. At the end of the day, they really don't matter. It's kind of what you do throughout the course of the season.
Right. Moving on a little bit, you said moving on from last season. Going forward, recruiting this season. I know you're right in the middle of recruiting sessions. Have you made any big-time signings? Is there any particular positions you're targeting?
Well, I feel really good about the direction of our recruiting. We're still in the process. We're still going. We'll probably go all through the summer trying to find, one more. We're always looking for a power forward. That's always, every year when you talk to me at the end of the year, we'll always say we're looking for a power forward, because that's what you look for. That's right. The hardest animal to hunt in our business. So, but we've already signed some really good players so far. Maddie Greenwood out of Wichita, Kansas. Actually, she's from Derby, Kansas. She played at Cali College. She'll come in and play point guard for us. She's a phenomenal player. She was an all-region player in the Jayhawk League. Right. We signed a shooting guard, Vanessa Jones from San Jacinto College in Houston, who was arguably the best player in her region at that position. So she's coming in. We think the sky's the limits for her. We're also bringing back Shauna Coleman, who played here as a freshman, transferred to a JUCO, and now she's coming back. She was an all-region player in Oklahoma. I think she has a chance to be one of the best power forwards in our conference. So we're excited about her. And then we signed a young lady early in the signing period in November named Bethany Ross from Mansfield. And she was actually born in Wall, so she's very familiar to Angelo State, and her family is too. And she's a 6-foot shooting guard, and we're really excited about her and what she's going to bring to the table. And the future of Vail basketball is bright, and we've got a couple more to get still.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to the next season. I tell you, my partner Don and I produced all the games, and we were really disappointed when the season was over. And I'm looking forward to hosting a conference tournament next year, and perhaps even a regional. But we'll have to see how that goes.
Hosting a regional would be an amazing thing.
Right. One off-topic question before we finish the segment. The draft just happened. I know you're a big Dallas fan, as am I. What do you think about picking Ezekiel Elliott in the first round?
I'm one of those guys where I was really worried about, the typical rule is you don't pick a running back in the early rounds. And so I was a little worried, but he could be the next Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
And with the other backs that we have around him, we're not going to just run him to death this first couple of years and make an Earl Campbell out of him. So I think we're going to do it the right way with him. And I'd still think that you got to take the best player available. And on the board at that time, he was the best player available. Yeah. Now I am really concerned about our defense, but maybe if we have a good running back and him and Alfred Morris and a few others, if we have the ball for a really long time, maybe our defense will have to play very much.
You can't score if you don't have the ball, so maybe they'll be able to kill the clock a lot more.
That's right.
But Coach, appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today. Coming up after the break, we'll sit down with Coach Cinco Boone. Come back and join us. For all of your sports information, news, highlights, interviews, special features, and much, much more, visit angelosports.com and stay tuned to Ram TV, Suddenlink Channel 6. And welcome back. We're joined now by Coach Cinco Boone, the Rams basketball team. Coach, talk a little bit about the 15-16 season, some of the highlights, some of the things that stood out in your mind. Obviously, second straight Sweet 16 appearance, first as assistant, last one as an actual head coach, first-year head coach. Tell me a little bit about what you thought of the past season.
Well, I think that we're pleased overall with how the first season went. 25-7 overall record and a trip to the Sweet 16 in my first season as a head coach. We're pleased with that. And we're looking to build off of that, with recruiting, and we think that Angelo State's name is getting out there a little bit more on the national scene. So hopefully we'll keep attracting top-notch recruits and be able to take it a little bit further. But to recap the season, I thought we had some great individual guys on our team that had some, they got postseason honors, and we were proud of that. And we were proud that we had an 11-1 record here at the Janelle Center, and it just that daggum Tarleton State, 2 years in a row have kind of been a thorn in our side. So in the future, we're looking to recruit some players that we know we can get over the hump and beat the Tarletons and Midwesterns of the Lone Star, and hopefully go a little bit further in the future.
Right. Talking about the conference schedule for a moment. A little bit of a slow start, but the team seemed to rebound very nicely and finish strong in the conference. Didn't win the conference title, but you did go to the Sweet 16, like I said, won a couple of games in the regional. How did you, going into conference play, had a couple of setbacks, how did you get everything turned around and head in the right direction?
Well, and I think as a young coach, I think I made a huge mistake. We were very proud of our non-conference schedule. So, I think we had the best start in school history at 12-0. But then one of the mistakes I made is I did not schedule a game. Basically, we did not play from December 17th, 18th in Las Vegas until like January the 6th at Tarleton State. So even though we come back from Christmas break, we practiced for like 8 or 9, 10 days before we went to a hostile environment in Stephenville. And so, I wish I'd scheduled a game, a kind of a warm-up or a scrimmage or an exhibition or something that we could have kind of practiced and then went and played. And so we went that long without a contest. And so, I really kind of felt like that is one of the things that we started off slow. We didn't win on the road at Tarleton. I don't know anybody that did this last year, and really in the last couple of years, right. Not many people. But that was the start of conference play. Then you come back and you play Commerce at home, who I thought early on in the conference race that they were one of the better teams in the conference. And so we started off 0-2, and we took a long look in the mirror, and we just said, hey, this is the Lone Star. We've recruited all of you guys for the most part, other than Omari, you're new. This is what the Lone Star is about. There's a lot more games left to be played. You can't stop now, and they bought into it, and we bounced back, we beat WT at home, and then we kind of took off and got going. And what a crazy year for the 5-way tie for second place and all the tiebreakers and everything. And then seems like the ball kind of bounced our way with the coin flip and get the number 2 seed in the Lone Star Conference tournament. But we still had to go play and beat good teams. I mean, we beat Kingsville, we beat Tarleton, and then Midwestern was a very good team. They were number 1 ranked in our region. And so, and we knew going into that game, whoever won that game would probably host the regional tournament, and just didn't play well, but it was good enough to get us a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, and we went and played 2 really good games, and that last game I thought it could have gone either way. You know, it was a 5-point game, and you know, just right there. So hopefully in the next year the ball bounces our way and we'll be going to the Elite Eight.
Right. I didn't want to talk to you after. I'm glad we waited a couple of months to do the season recap, because I know that probably sat pretty hard with you, that regional final.
You know, I tell people all the time, if you don't win the last game of the season, you're going to be disappointed. And
right.
There's only one team that doesn't leave there disappointed.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's we're proud of what we accomplished, but our goal is to advance further than that, because we've been there 2 years in a row, and I'd be lying if I said that that's not, you know, in our spring off-season workouts and our players and the weight room and as we try to build things in recruiting, that's what we're trying to build towards, is to get past that point.
I understand. You mentioned something just a minute ago. I would want to touch on for a second. You come in, you've been here part of the program for a couple of years, but this was your first year as the head coach. You have almost a complete turnover with one exception, Omari. How in the world did you happen to bring everybody together? Because you took off like a rocket, 12-0 to start the season. How did you get everybody to come together on the same page so quickly?
Well, I'll tell you this, it wasn't easy. You know, we had our ups and downs. We had our, you know, our peaks and our valleys for sure with this team. But you know, number one, it starts with the character of the players themselves. You know, we got some pretty good kids. And then you mix it in with their talent. They're good players. And I felt like early on we almost had too many good players. You know, like it was one of those deals where I felt like we couldn't get enough everybody's shots and get the ball spread around enough. And but it was just a work in progress, and it's something we talked about every day in practice. We had a lot of powwows in the locker room talking about, you know, shot selection and what we're trying to do to fix some things. And it even got us to the point where we had to make a few changes to our roster in order to kind of get to where everybody was on the same page. And so that doesn't always happen on every team, but this particular team it happened. And you know, a couple of things that I think we do as a staff that I think really helps. You know, for starters, a lot of our guys come to summer school in the month of July. And so the guys make the commitment to come in the month of July. And although, you know, NCAA rules, they do not allow us to work with them on the court, these guys are able to be in the weight room together. They're able to live in the dorms together. They're able to take classes together, and then they can play pickup ball anytime they want to. And so they're already building camaraderie and chemistry. You know, if you're getting to know each other on July 6th instead of August the 30th, to me, that's a big difference. You know, I think that makes and there's a lot of people in this town that have made that possible in our fundraising efforts in order to allow us to have these guys here in summer school, and Dr. May and everybody. So we appreciate that. And then in the month of October, about 1 weekend before practice starts, we take the guys on a team retreat. And my dad, we take them out to my dad's ranch out in New Mexico. And it's a pretty neat deal. You know, we're out there in the middle of nowhere. Cell phones don't work. And we do a lot of team building, and these guys really kind of find out about each other, you know, like where they come from and what they stand for, and the battles that they've kind of fought through to get here. And we really come together during that weekend. And to me, those two things have kind of been a staple of what we've done the last 2 seasons, and I think that's a big part of why the teams have gelled together and reached the destinations that they've reached. And but again, it starts with the character of the kids. You know, we got pretty good guys.
You know, going back to what you said about the team retreat, I'm sure you don't know this, but I lived in Clovis for 4 years.
I did not know that.
And so every time you start talking about Portales, I start chuckling a little bit because I'm very familiar with the area. What is it like when you get a bunch of city kids out on a cattle ranch in eastern New Mexico?
Oh, it's awesome. You know, you get them out there, and I mean, right there by the house is the horse pens, and so immediately they see, you know, 8 or 9 head of horses, and they're immediately right over by the fence checking them out. And you know, then we kind of drive them around in the pasture some, and they get to see cattle and antelope and quail, and you know, every now and then at night they can hear the coyotes yipping. And Dr. May always warns them before they go out there that they better make sure their sleeping bags underneath the porch, because a coyote might come nipping at them at night. And so they do a pretty good job of staying under the porch at night, you know. So, but it's they enjoyed it. I mean, the last 2 years, I mean, my dad treats them like kings out there, and they see the value in it. I really think that they understand why we're there, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've come off so quickly in the last 2 years.
Sounds like a great team building exercise. Moving forward, we talked enough about 15, 16. You're in the middle of your recruiting process right now. What are some of the positions that you may be kind of looking at, without giving away any trade secrets or anything? What are some of the positions you're kind of looking at this year?
Well, I mean, I think it's natural when you look at graduation and we lost 3 guys, Trey Bennett, who was a first-team All-Region point guard for us, Stedman Allen, who was a second-team All-Conference player, who I thought, power forward, 4-man, whatever you want to call it, and then Omari, who was kind of the man in the middle and at 6'10" and athletic, and so, yeah, and he's been a 3-year guy, so we're losing some experience, and then we're losing 2 Division I transfers that we've had here that in those positions. So we need to fill those positions. I think we need a point guard with the kind of talent that Trey had, hopefully a first-team All-Region performer. And then, we need a 4-man and we need a 5-man. And so we helped ease a little bit of the pressure and bringing in a guy mid-semester that sits about 6'10", 6'11", a Division I transfer. He'll be here for next year. And so we kind of feel like maybe he's going to fill the void of Omari. And we're out searching for 3 or 4 guys that we can think can be impact guys. And then we're trying to integrate some younger kids. We've gone out. We've got 2 commitments so far and from some 4-year players. So we're looking forward to getting them in the mix along with some other guys, maybe that are a Division I transfer or a junior college transfer.
Couple of, I guess before or in the middle of the 14-15 season, I talked with Coach Beard when he was still here, and he made a statement, and I want to ask you, he said it is hard or it's difficult to win in the Lone Star Conference without D1 talent. Is that something that you would agree with, or is that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, I think every school in the Lone Star Conference, probably in recruiting, when they talk to a kid, they say, hey, this is just like a Division I conference. And it really is. I mean, when you look and see that some of the Division I guys that have been at certain levels and for one reason or another, they kind of trickle down to the Division II, they usually end up in the Lone Star. If there's a top 20 or top 40 junior college player who, for one reason or another, whether it be academics, whether it be just missed in recruiting by some Division I's, those guys end up in the Lone Star. These guys have got the resources to go out and find them. They've got the knowledge. They got great recruiters, great coaches that they know how to sniff out the good players, and they know how to talk them into coming to their school. So they typically wind up in the Lone Star. And I feel the same way. I feel like we have to get those guys that could be playing on TV every night in Division I. We got to talk those guys into coming here. And but I don't think it has to be the whole roster, but I think you've got to have several guys with that kind of talent mixed in with some glue guys that are 4-year guys, program guys, and that's what we're trying to incorporate with starting some of these high school kids, getting them in here.
Right. Well, that's good. One question off topic, real quick, and I've been wanting to ask you this since you took over the program. How in the world did an old calf roper from Port Alice end up as a very successful head basketball coach in San Angelo, Texas?
For starters, when you mentioned San Angelo, years ago when I wanted to get into coaching, I knew I wanted to coach somewhere where I was going to be comfortable and I was going to love living. Right. And I'll tell you, it's like God just led me straight here, and this is for an old calf roper when the roping fiesta comes to town and, there's still enough rodeos going on all around this area. And then to be able to work in a place like the Janelle Center and have a coaching job like this is a dream come true. This is awesome. But, my dad taught me a long time ago, hard work will get you anywhere. And I wanted to be a college basketball coach. And so I just struck out, and just never took no for an answer and grinded it out. And I found kind of what I would consider a dream job, So, man, you're not the first to ask that, but I'm just lucky that you guys put up with me and keep me around here, and hopefully we'll keep winning games and graduating players and keep it rolling here.
You ever get the urge to calf rope? Do you still calf rope on the ranch?
Not too much dadgum weight. I don't think a horse would carry me anymore. I check the PRCA standings all the time. I still call a lot of my buddies when I'm it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and we're recruiting. They're going from one town to the next, so I'll call them, and I get enough of it just from gossip. But I guess I've gotten so dadgum fat. I guess I'll have to become a team roper and stay on my horse these days. But I don't know. There's a couple guys that have asked me if I'd come out there, and if I can find a little time this summer, I'd bet that you'd be closer to finding me at a rodeo arena than you would a golf course.
Right, I understand. Well, I appreciate you joining us today. Wish you well in the upcoming 16-17 season. We look forward to hosting a Lone Star Conference tournament and a regional this next year.
I hope so.
All right.
I think so.
Coach Boone, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time on ASU Coaches Corner. This has been a joint production of AngeloSports.com and Ram TV 6.